All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro, glad you could join us. Coming up here in the next hour, Patrick Lindsay is the director of the Shriners Hospital for Children's Open. He is one of the main reasons why we have the number one player in the world right in our backyard next week. Phil Mickelson, Adam Scott, Bubba Watson, star-studded field PGA Tour, the Shriners. He's going to be joining us in studio coming up here in a few minutes. Maybe he'll have some more names to share with us. So we will certainly be talking about that. AB, a deposition. He's going to be going to court. We'll explain what that's all about. Maybe it's for farting in another doctor's face or something. I don't know. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit as well. And also, we have some tickets to give away in hour number 3 as well to the Chivalry Renaissance Festival at Sunset Park. That sounds like a cool little date to go to. So we'll be giving those away, a pair of tickets to that coming up here in a little bit as well. By the way, the Las Vegas Aces are in action today. It is Game 4 in their series against the Washington Mystics. They won over the weekend. They've extended the series. They are 4-point underdogs in this game. I think it's a pick 'em. I think it's a flip a coin type game. You really never want to lose on your home floor in the playoffs. You don't want in the playoffs your last game to be on your home court in front of your home fans. So we'll see what the Las Vegas Aces do. I believe it's an earlier tip-off time. I believe it's 6 p.m. at Mandalay Bay. I will certainly be there for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Great atmosphere, by the way, at these games. It really is a fun atmosphere. You wish UNLV would have that type of atmosphere at the Thomas & Mack Center. Oh, by the way, speaking of UNLV basketball, guess what? This week is their first week of official practices under new head basketball coach T.J. Otzelberger. We'll get T.J. on the show. He's been on the show before. Pretty good squad he put together this year. I expect them to win more games than any year Marvin Menzies had here. So we'll get T.J. on the show coming up. And again, officially, college basketball practice is underway at UNLV. So it's going to be an interesting season. The reason why I haven't talked a lot about UNLV football lately is because I think, and I like Tony Sanchez. I do. I've said that a million times. I think he's a great guy, easy guy to root for, a good dude. But I just think he's done. And what am I going to do? I mean, I just think he's gone. There's no chance they're making a bowl game this year. They're just horrible. And, you know, you want to put all the responsibility on Sanchez. I certainly put partial responsibility on him and the coaching staff. They have not done a good job recruiting. And, no, I just think he's done. You're going to have to start with a new coach and a new system unless something dramatic happens this year, and I just don't see it happening. You know, you're going to be playing where the Raiders are playing in a huge, huge arena or dome. You can't have 5,000 fans show up. So we'll continue to monitor that. But we're talking about this story that is just blowing my mind. You know, we hear of stalkers all the time, and maybe at one point in your life you had a stalker. I had a stalker once in my life, but we're talking about Miley Cyrus here. But I remember I was working at a radio station, and it was about, it had to be at least 12 years ago. So I'm working at a radio station. I started dating this girl for a couple months. This is a true story, and I can't believe I'm going to tell it on the radio, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then we'll get to the Miley Cyrus story, I promise you. So I met this girl at a local bar. I believe it was, I'm trying to remember the bar where I met this girl. Blue Martini, actually. A cool hangout. I was single at the time. I met this girl. We had a great conversation. And I said, what do you do for a living? Because obviously when you meet somebody, you want to know what they do. You want to make sure they're not unemployed, right? I was working in radio at the time, and she told me she developed websites. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, I know people today that do that for a living, and you can make a nice living doing that. So we dated for not that long. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 weeks. It wasn't that long. But when you're seeing somebody, she wasn't my girlfriend. But when you're seeing somebody for a month or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, I think most people would say, that might have a chance of going somewhere, right? I certainly thought so. Maybe she thought so. So she invites me over to dinner one night. And then she looks me in the eye and she says, I need to tell you what I really do for a living. And I'm like, okay. I didn't know what she was going to say. She said, well, I'm a porn star. And I looked at her and I just started laughing because, of course, I didn't think she was telling me the truth. You know, she didn't strike me as the typical stereotype porn star. Let's put it that way. Okay, I won't go any further there. And then she gives me her porn star name. No, I'm not going to say it on the air because I don't want to be made fun of. But she gives me her porn star name and said, no, I'm telling you the truth. So I Google her, and, you can imagine I saw some of the worst pictures you could ever want to see from somebody that you're dating. Okay, I'm not going to go into graphic detail. It was absolutely horrible. It made me not even want to kiss her even on the cheek, let alone the lips, okay? It was the most disgusting, vile stuff you could ever see. It's the kind of stuff that'll give you viruses on your computer and you'll have to buy another laptop, okay? That's what popped up. So I was livid, okay? I was angry, okay? I without getting into too much detail, I was intimate with her, okay? Don't worry, if you're dating me now, I did get tested. Everything's okay. But so I broke up with her right then and there. I was livid. I said, I don't want to talk to you again, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that you're a porn star. I might have lied to her. It had a little bit to do with that. But it had the majority to do with the fact that she lied to me. She doesn't develop websites. I mean, she developed her own webcam website. Does that count? She is a porn star, okay? So I broke up with her. And the reason why I bring this story up, it's both sad and funny, but I show up to work the next day. She knew where I work. Unfortunately, I told her where I work. She showed up to my job the next day. And my boss is like, Brian, you got to cut this girl off. You got to get a restraining order or something. She showed up 2 days in a row to my job crying. And I'm like, oh, my God, I have my first stalker. This is not something to brag about, right? It's a porn star stalker. That's what I had. Most guys would dream of that, right? I dreaded it. So I called her, and I basically said, listen, I'm going to file a restraining order against you, and I'm going to call the police if you ever show up to my job again. Now, luckily, it ended there. She did send me a few emails, but then it was over with. But that was a very scary situation. And the reason why I bring, for a lot of reasons, by the way, the reason why I bring that story up is because we have a stalker in Las Vegas that was just arrested for wanting to impregnate her. We're talking about Miley Cyrus. I would imagine Miley has a few more stalkers than I do. But anyway, the iHeartRadio Music Festival set in Las Vegas, I guess you could say it took a dark turn. Law enforcement officials here in Las Vegas are saying cops were called to the T-Mobile Arena over the weekend after Miley's security team noticed 42-year-old David Rumsey in the audience. We're told Rumsey was on their watch list because he'd allegedly made previous threats against her. Rumsey told Miley's team, quote, "It's my life's mission to impregnate Miley." We're told the guy also claimed he was going to raise Michael Jackson and Prince from the dead so they could party with him and Miley. So this guy seems like a very normal individual, right? Not mentally disturbed at all. Let me just repeat that again, how nuts this guy is. First of all, if you want to impregnate Miley, that's nuts enough, whether you're a stalker or not. I would say that's crazy enough as it is. But he thinks he could rise people from the dead like Michael Jackson and Prince. Is that the first person you would rise from the dead? Is that the first person you'd want to bring to life? I don't know. I think my pick would be Rodney Dangerfield. I don't know. It wouldn't be Michael Jackson. But anyway, so after being detained by Miley's security team, Rumsey was arrested, booked into the Clark County jail on felony charge of making threats. He is currently still in custody. Don't get me wrong. I like Miley Cyrus. I wouldn't want to impregnate her, but I like her. Anyway, the guy's Twitter feed is, I guess for lack of a better term, bizarre. In tweets the week before the concert, he told Miley he's sorry for hurting her and blames Donald Trump. Okay, listen. All right. Let me be clear on this one, okay? Or you know, my Obama impersonation. Let me be clear. I blame Donald Trump for a lot of things, right? I put partial blame on him for some of these mass shootings. I put blame on him for the divide in this country. I put blame on Trump for a lot of different things. One thing I have never blamed Donald Trump for is a Miley Cyrus stalker who wants to impregnate her. I don't think Donald Trump has anything to do with this. I think he's completely innocent of this. Let me just be clear on the record. I do not blame Donald Trump for the Miley Cyrus stalker. By the way, this guy also insinuated, this nut job also insinuated that after they meet in Vegas, they'll be able to party with MJ, Prince, and Tupac. He threw Tupac in there as well. Because apparently Tupac, you know, he could... that's one thing that actually surprises me about this guy. Because most people think Tupac is still alive. Apparently, he's not a conspiracy theorist, so he's normal in that category. He actually does think Tupac is dead, although he does think he could make him rise from the dead. Sources are also saying that the twisted tweets are why Miley's team had distributed Rumsey's photo to staff inside the venue and instructed them to be on the lookout during her performance. Mission accomplished for Team Miley, I guess you could say. But in all seriousness, though, this is pretty scary stuff, right? If you're a celebrity, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a politician. Ocasio-Cortez has had death threats. There's politicians out there that have had death threats before. This is not a laughing matter, right? This isn't something to brag about. This isn't something to gloat. I do wonder, though, because I shared my story on the air just now of me being stalked by a porn star. Like I said, most men would dream to have that, not me. But I will open up the phone lines. I'm curious to hear some of your stories out there. Have you ever been stalked or know somebody that's stalked? Or maybe you stalked somebody. I don't know. I'll open up the phone lines. I welcome you to call in. I'd like to hear your story on that. Yeah, you heard my nightmare story. The number to call in if you want to be a part of the show, 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-257-5396. We're talking about stalking. Miley Cyrus being stalked by this guy who wants to impregnate her and thinks he could bring Michael Jackson and Prince rising up from the dead. So, JD, I'll ask you this question. Have you ever been stalked before? Have you ever had a girl that stalked you or a fan or anything for that matter? And by the way, the number to call if you want to share your story, 257-5396.
Never had a girl. I've had a guy. I've had a guy that's stalked me for about 15 years.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
So how does that start? How does that? Give me a little specifics on that. I'm interested.
You know, harassing text messages consistently. You block a number, you get a message from a different number.
That's it?
Just things like that.
But
just,
for 15 years?
For a long, long time, yeah. And I don't know if it's a fan or someone that's very, very jealous, but it's been going on for a long, long time. I've probably had to block 20, 25 phone numbers, 10 Twitter accounts, 6 Facebook accounts.
Did you have to contact law enforcement?
I have been in the process with law enforcement before, and I will be doing it at a more aggressive level in the near future.
So what would you do if you had a porn star stalk you, like me? How would you handle that? If you had a female porn star stalk you, well, how would you handle that sort of thing?
You have a female porn star stalking you?
I just told the story. Yeah, I did back in the day, 12 years ago. She showed up at my job. How would you handle it? I threatened to call the police, and then she kind of laid off. Have you ever had anybody show up at your job?
I have not had a female stalker show up at my job. No.
But you had this guy show up.
I've had this guy show up in various parts of the country because he knew where I was. He was tracking where I was, and he would just randomly show up where I was at.
So I don't understand. Was he just like did he want to date you? Was it a sexual thing, or what was going on?
I truthfully don't know. I have absolutely no idea. It's just a weird fascination.
Is this somebody you went to school with,
or obsession? But it's been going on for a long, long time.
That's fascinating. Well, that's crazy to me. I've only had females stalk me. I've never had a man stalk me. Not that it's better or worse, but I guess if you have your choice, if you're attracted to women, you'd rather have an attractive woman stalk you than a man, right? Is that a fair statement to say? If it was an attractive woman, it would probably be a little bit. Would it be better? I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't know if it would be better. But I guess it's not a laughing matter because some of these stalkers, you think of John Lennon. You think of his death. He was killed by a stalker. And you think of, this isn't the first time. There have been stalkers over the years that have done some pretty horrible things to people, and John Lennon is no exception to that. But man, it's just scary because there are a lot of crazy people out there. You never know what they're capable of doing. You just don't know. And when you have somebody that maybe goes to your job, I think this happens to women more than men. Do you think that is a fair statement to make, that women have more stalkers than men? You think that's accurate?
I'm sure it is, but I think it just happens to anyone who has a bit of celebrity, who has a lot to lose, who has a lot of exposure on a national scale, and people get themselves immersed in their lives, and they believe that they are connected to them in some weird cosmic way, and it makes them do these completely ridiculous things. But obviously, yes, attractive women typically do have more stalkers than your standard male.
Yeah, and I guess when you're a celebrity, or for in this example, Miley Cyrus, we shouldn't be shocked, right? There's a lot of mainly attractive female singers that seem to have, or actresses that seem to have the most stalkers. But again, you never know what they're capable of. I mean, this guy was on their watch list that showed up to her concert over the weekend. And I tell you what, she's got a pretty damn good security team because they recognized him right away. And luckily, this nut job was arrested. This is the type of thing I talk about, not to get in the gun control debate, but this is the type of thing I'm talking about. A man like this guy, who's clearly stalking Miley Cyrus, should not be allowed to buy a firearm for a very, very long time until he gets help and they deem him to be normal or he's on the correct medication. A guy like that should not be allowed to buy a gun. And that is why I think we should have red flag laws on the table for specific examples like this. This guy is threatening to impregnate a celebrity. He said some really bizarre things on social media. I'm sorry, that's enough. The Second Amendment should not apply to somebody like that, at least temporarily, not for a guy like that. I don't want that guy going into a store, buying into whether it's an AR-15 or a handgun for that matter. I don't want that guy to be able to buy a gun. I think that is extremely logical and fair. And I don't know why there are so many people on the right that are against these red flag laws. For the life of me, I just don't get that. There are plenty of people out there like this guy who stalked Miley Cyrus. There are plenty of people out there.
I mean, I wouldn't be
like
shocked if every single female celebrity had 50 or 60 of these type of guys.
Sadly, probably, you're probably right.
Well, if you've got, Miley Cyrus has, 60 million Instagram followers? If you have that much attention to yourself on a digital platform, there's a chance that there's a small percentage of those followers are extremist nut jobs.
I agree. It's extremely scary.
I would imagine the Kardashians have thousands of stalkers.
It's extremely scary. There's no question about it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little golf. The Shriners Hospital for Children's Open. The director, Patrick Lindsay, going to be joining us in studio. And best field they've had probably ever. That might be fair to say. We'll talk to Patrick coming up next in studio. You are listening to the Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.